Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm here. My name is Dr. Asha de Vos. I'm going to be running this session today. Thank you for joining. I'm sure all of you have some very interesting questions to ask, and so I'm excited to be able to answer them over the next 55 minutes. So I wanted to give about 5 minutes for more people to enter the room. No doubt there will be others who keep joining us as we move on for the next, close to an hour. Just a couple of quick things. So to know, there's a Q&A button. So to make it efficient, because our time is very tight, to make it efficient, it's easier if you type in your questions in the Q&A, and then I can read the question out, and then I can respond. I have also collected other questions beforehand through your sign up sheet. So I have some other questions, but because you are actually physically present in the room, I do want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. So you'll get priority to ask questions through the Q&A button, and then I will proceed to answer some of the questions I got through the sign up sheet, which are some great questions, which I'm sure will help all of you as well. So does anyone want to start? Anyone have a burning question? You want to pop it into the Q&A and we can get started. While we're waiting, I'm going to, maybe I'll answer one of the questions from the sheet while I'm waiting for you guys to type into the Q&A section. I'm waiting for that to load. So one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is, what subjects should I study if I want to be a marine biologist? That's a difficult question to answer, right? Because marine biology has many aspects to it, right? So for example, I can talk from my personal experience. In school, I did biology, maths, and physics. I didn't do chemistry because I wasn't very good at chemistry. And so for me, I didn't do it. And luckily, it wasn't a requirement for my university. So one of the things you want to think about is what is the institution you want to go to? Where do you want to go and do your degree? And you have to look at what their requirements are that will allow you to enter that university. Okay, so that's the first thing to think about. Any questions? I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, so it'd be great if you had some questions, if you want to ask them through the Q&A button, which is you should have on the top. If it's not enabled, just drop a message in the chat, and then we can figure out how to proceed. Okay. Another question was changing career paths. So I've had a few questions about what do you do if you have a different background. So someone wrote and said they're doing animal sciences, but they mainly do fisheries and aquaculture subjects, and they want to switch to marine biology. That's perfectly fine. Fisheries and aquaculture is technically an area in marine sciences, in marine biology. So that's a pretty easy switch. It is just about broadening your interest perhaps, and looking at what other areas you're interested in the marine biology area. Someone has studied geography and they would like to do a master's in marine science in the UK. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. Geography, there are some fundamentals of geography that are actually quite applicable to marine sciences. So there's a lot of overlap in these subjects, and there's even marine geography, which is a marine science. It may not be biology specific, but there are skills. But also always remember you have transferable skills. For example, you might be good at doing GIS mapping, which is really handy. And geographers are particularly good at that, mapping, things like that. And so that skill is something that is very useful in a lot of areas. I'll give you also an example of a switched career. My student, Udayanga Sampath, who's our PhD student here at Oceanswell and Ocean University, he actually comes from an IT background. And that may seem like a pretty far off area to come from because he's now doing marine biology. But the key thing here is that he has very good software skills and hardware skills, right? And so he's working on marine mammal acoustics. Acoustics, there's a lot of physics to it. There's a lot of software. There's a lot of time at the computer doing analysis. And that's his strength. So he got into this PhD program because of those skills that he had gained through his IT degree. And now he can apply them in the marine biology field. And so he can now work with marine mammals. He's working on the acoustics. He's trying to understand where their favorite habitats are. That's all the biological component, but he's able to kind of bring those together. Any questions from the audience? Everyone's very quiet and I can't talk to myself. So if you can pop questions into the Q&A, that would be really great. Okay. So that's actually perfect, Bashir. See, as you can see, physics is actually a very important part of many parts of marine sciences. You do acoustics, for example. So like I was explaining, because a lot of sound, the physics of sound is very important to understand vocalizations of animals. But also you can do oceanography, right? Where we try to understand how currents and circulation in our oceans moves and shifts and how that influences the environment. And that in turn influences the animals that live in that environment. And that's all physics stuff, right? Like I did my PhD in physical oceanography, which was very much this physics component of things. So great question. And absolutely, there is a part for you in the marine sciences area. I'm going to hope that other people will also, like Bashir, pop some questions in the Q&A. I've got my eye there. So please ask me questions. This is I get emails from people all the time saying, can you answer my questions? And I can't always do one-on-one time. I can't answer every email. And this is your chance to have some of your questions answered. So please pop them in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm going to be answering fairly generic questions that I've got through some of the application system that we ran. Can you become a marine biologist without completing a degree in the field? Well, you can become, if you don't have a degree, you can definitely contribute to the marine environment. You can contribute to marine conservation. But if you want to be a biologist specifically, that's a very scientifically orientated area. And you do have to have some scientific training to be able to do things that a marine biologist does. So without the training, yes, you can help in the field, you can do field work, but to understand what you do with the data that you collect in the field, you really do need to have that training to analyze data and then to be able to produce the results that can actually have impact, right? So I would encourage you, if you're considering going into working with the marine environment, if you can get some scientific backing and a degree of some sort in the sciences, it's really, really valuable. I saw a question come up on the chat. I'm going to ask if you can just please pop it in the Q&A section. It's a lot easier for me to monitor when it's in the Q&A. So there's a button that says Q&A in the toolbar right along from the chat room. So please just copy paste your question in the Q&A, which would be awesome. Okay. Marine biology research surveys can be quite expensive. How do you get around this? Are funding options available? There's hundreds and thousands of funding options across the world. You just have to look for them, right? I can't tell you where to look because that's impossible. There are so many organizations that provide funding. There are so many small groups that provide funding. Even locally, say the National Science Foundation will have some funding. So it really is up to you to go out and search for those grants, search for those opportunities. Absolutely. Everything costs money, right? Conservation, you cannot really do conservation without some funding. It can vary in how much it costs though, because it can cost between, like boat-based operations obviously are some of the more costly operations. So the kind of work that we do with the Blue Whales can cost quite a lot because you have to rent a boat, you have to get out on the water. There's a lot of logistics around that. But if you're doing social science related work, which is going into maybe communities, asking structured, questions, then it is less costly. But there are grants available for all of these things. So therefore, you definitely 100%, there are funds available. Okay, I see that you say that it does not work for you. Okay, that's unusual. If anyone else is having a problem with the Q&A button, let me know. It should work. It worked for someone. So, okay, in the chat, I got another question. Does Sri Lanka have job opportunities in relation to marine biology? Asking me that, like my answer is obviously going to be yes, right? I'm a marine biologist. I work in Sri Lanka. So fundamentally, my answer is 100% yes. We are an island nation, right? We have 8 times more ocean area than land area. There is so much potential to do work in Sri Lanka. I myself did have to create a path, because when I started, there weren't any job opportunities. There weren't any opportunities to become a marine scientist. And people thought it was crazy to be a marine scientist. But there are certainly much more opportunities now. Everything from, if you have a marine biology degree, you can work in fisheries and aquaculture. You can work in conservation. You can work in the social sciences, working with fishing communities. There is a lot of opportunity available. So certainly, I may not be the right person to ask, because obviously I've built a career in marine biology in Sri Lanka, and I see enormous potential, and I have been able to give other people opportunities also in the field in this country through my organization, Oceanswell. So I would say yes, definitely. Anyone else, if you're having problems with the Q&A button, I'm not sure why that would be the case, but you can then pop it in the chat room. Bashir, I'm unclear how to answer this question. It's a bit vague. So you're saying, if the university doesn't focus in this field and the availability of resources are limited, what should the alternative ways to get in the field? Well, I mean, certainly, you have to look for opportunities to work in the field, which is always a good thing, right? You can't always, like, if you have a degree, the next step is to get experience. Look out for experiences. There are definitely institutions and organizations in this country that provide opportunities, particularly for people who are interested in working in the marine sciences. So make sure you follow them on social media, you're checking their websites regularly, and that you are keeping an eye out to see how you can apply and maybe grow and learn in the field. The other opportunity is also for you to do some self-learning. If you haven't specifically got marine-related expertise, you might want to take an online course perhaps on the ocean, on marine sciences, on maybe physical oceanography, since your background is in physics, and try to build up your skill level so that when you then you become more and more eligible for some of the positions that might be offered by organizations that work in the marine field. So there's a component where an institution or organization can help you to grow, but you also have to do a lot of self-investment and perhaps look at, like, what are the options for you to help yourself to grow in the field, so you are more skilled, that you can apply for positions as and when they come up. So there's another question about how do you connect with experts in the field, and I think this is very relevant to many of you. One thing is, I get a lot of emails where people will just write, "Hi, can you tell me how to get into this field?" Now, I will tell you 100%, I don't answer those questions, right? I am very particular because my time is very limited, as you all might understand, and I want to be of help. But if someone's going to just write to me and expect me to write my whole life story, I'm not going to be able to do that, right? It doesn't even make sense. So one of the things, I'll give you a few tips on how to connect with experts in the field. One is, if you're interested, I think one of the best ways right now is Twitter. On Twitter, you can find experts in different areas of marine science, right? And marine science is very diverse, right? There are people who work particularly on a particular species. There are people who work on ecosystems. There are people who work on social issues. There are people who work on the physical side of things. So it's a very, very diverse field. So to get a taste of what you're interested in, go on places like Twitter, find those scientists doing interesting work, follow their work. You don't have to write to them. You don't have to comment on anything. Just read what work they're doing. Read the science they're producing, right? That's really, really important. Read the science they're producing to learn about the science and bring yourself up to date. Then, if you have an interest and a burning question that you want to ask them, don't write a casual message on a DM, right? I will tell you, scientists, certainly from my generation, maybe it feels old school to you guys, but DMs are not the way. Social media, direct messaging is not the way to talk to an expert, right? So what you need to think about is, you need to find their email address. Then before you write an email, think about, is the question I'm going to ask something that I cannot find the answer to anywhere on their website, anywhere in their research, right? You have to do that groundwork. If you write to me and ask me a question about something that I have written about a million times or talked about on a video, then I'm not going to be able to answer you, because you're taking time away from a busy schedule, right? So what you want to do is make sure whatever question you're asking is well thought out, and it's something they can answer because it's in their expertise. And also, it's something that you cannot answer by going through their website and their existing work, right? Then write a polite email where you structure it properly, you address them formally, you write to them and tell them, what you're interested in their work, and what question you have, right? If you write a vague question, if you write a question which expects like them to write an essay, if you write a question about some work that's very easily accessible, you will probably not get a reply. Okay, so those are my tips for how to connect with experts in the field. Okay, I see a few more questions coming in. Great stuff. I don't have much experience in marine biology, but I wish to study. I have done graduation in zoology. Is it good if I start with conservation biology and then focus more on the marine aspect? Well, I mean, zoology is a very general field. There's a lot of skills you've learned, a lot of things you probably learned that are applicable to maybe about marine species, maybe in the conservation arena. So I wouldn't say that you may not have field experience in the field, but I think people who have zoology, it's an easy transition into the marine sciences, right? You just have to focus more on marine species versus general species. And, it can go either way. It doesn't matter if you're going with conservation first or marine. You might be able to go straight into marine conservation, because in zoology, say you learned about turtles, right? Like that's a marine species that is in need of conservation. So think about what the breadth of your knowledge is, which is actually quite broad if you're a zoologist, and because marine biology is actually a narrowing of your focus, and that's what you have to think about. Okay. Oceanswell participates in conservation acts. Is Oceanswell interested in participating or supporting our school's ocean conservation program? Great question. We get a lot of requests like this, right? So I will say, to find out if we can partner, you need to send us a detailed description, a proposal of what it is you are looking to partner with, what is it you are looking for from us, and you have to tell us like how does your project run, who's running it, what is your overarching goal, what is your vision, what is the impact you want to have. I'll be quite straight right now. We don't really work on any beach cleanups, right? And a lot of requests we get are people who want to do beach cleanups. That is not in our remit, right? We work on projects that are scientifically based, right? So we do conservation based on science. And so that's the area we're really interested in. So if your project has a very scientific component that you want to translate into conservation impact, then that's of course something of more interest, and that falls into the space that we work. We do a lot of marine conservation as it stands, as you know, if you looked at our website, if you follow our social media, but all of it has a very scientific grounding to it, because we're very particular about making sure that whatever we do is grounded in science. And again, just to reiterate, we don't do beach cleanups and stuff, because there's a lot of people who can do that, and you don't need to be a scientist to do that. So we want to try to make sure that in the niche area where there's less people, which is where there's need for scientists, that's the area we work in. So thank you for that question. Other questions, please send them in. It's hard to establish ourselves in a good position. Is it hard to establish ourselves in a good position in the field with just a BSc degree? That's a good question, right? It really depends. I think nowadays, particularly if you want to go into research, you might have to have a second degree, right? A master's or something that's a bit more specialized. Remember, like, this is the thing, right? Like, if you say, for example, you're applying for a job, right? Today, most people around you have a degree, like a basic degree, right? What makes you more competitive? What makes an employer be like, that's the person for the job, right? What are the skills that you bring that are different to everyone else who's done a degree in the field and who is fighting for that same position, right? So really, it would have to be another degree, perhaps, or maybe you've had some work experience, right? So with a BSc, you can certainly get work experience. You can work and see if this is a field that's of interest to you, right? But if you want to be competitive, you need to think about what are the skills you can build, what are the other things you can do to make sure that if there's 100 million people who have a BSc applying for the same job, you're the person who gets the job. Okay, so hopefully that gives you something. You can establish yourself in the field. There's nothing to stop you. I certainly I did a degree in marine biology, but I worked on some volunteer projects straight out of my undergrad, out of my BSc. That was the grounding. That's where I actually had my really big discovery with the blue whales of Sri Lanka. And then I did a master's, and then I did a PhD to enhance my skills to be able to build a long-term project and eventually build an organization that can support many other young, up-and-coming, incredible researchers. Why should you make a detailed biography about yourself? It would be very useful for those people who were mailing. Are you suggesting that I have a detailed biography? So what I can say is I've done tons of videos about my work, about my career path. So I would say that it does exist out there. I don't necessarily have time to sit and write these things down, but I do get invited to speak at events and stuff like that. So there is a lot. So if people are actually interested in knowing a bit about my career and stuff, I can tell you there's so many resources out there. And that is something that I would encourage people to go and find. If it's not me, it could be another expert. That's why I say, go read their materials, go and read their interviews, go and watch their videos, because you will learn a lot about these people. And asking them again to tell them about their lives is not going to be something that they'll do, because they've already put that information. We have generously put that information out into the world. And so we hope that we put it out there so that people like you can have access to that information, so that you can understand how your journey can also turn out by learning from our journeys or hearing about our journeys. So we generously put that information into the world. That's on you to go find it. And that's on you to go and spend some time actually doing that research yourself also to learn more about those people, right? Okay, still waiting for more questions, right? In the Q&A, or how to gain more field experience as a beginner. So I assume you have a zoology degree. There are opportunities, right? So Oceanswell also, we advertise opportunities, right? When we have opportunities, we're a very small organization, so we cannot support everyone, but we do definitely. We just had a volunteer opportunity that we just hired someone for, right? An internship. And so, keep your eyes on these pages, look out for opportunities, and when they come up, look at them, see what is being asked for. And if you're eligible for that position, make the effort to apply, right? So opportunities aren't going to fall in your lap. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works. You're going to have to make as much effort as possible to look for opportunities. They do exist, but you need to sign up, check social media, follow websites, and see what's available. And we offer opportunities every so often. And we try to give us an amazing opportunity to whoever comes. And also remember, you aren't only going to get field experience, right? So my biggest problem with a lot of people is they want to come and work with my organization, with me, but they only want to go out on my boat and work with whales. What I will tell you is I'm not interested in people who only want to go out in the field. I want people who are willing to sit at the desk and help process data, help to go through hours of video footage that can be analyzed then by the research team, by the science team, to actually have positive impact, right? So if someone comes to me and says, I only want to do field experience, I'm not interested in desk job, then I'm sorry, that's not going to appeal to me, right? So I want people who are willing to do field work, but are also excited to sit at the desk and go through. And I can tell you, even I do that work, right? I'm right now looking at 24 hours of video footage from some deep sea work we did last year, going through that footage. I had an intern already go through the footage. I'm going through the footage now. So we all do that work. Don't think it's beneath you. Don't think that you can only do fieldwork and that's the cool part. That's why you have to do it. The fieldwork the data we collect in the field is cool. It doesn't make sense unless you sit at your desk and you start processing the data, analyzing the data, right? So be willing to take on any experiences, okay? I'm having little success getting into the marine biology field despite my qualification experiences. I understand it's a competitive area, but everyone wants experience. No one will give the opportunity to gain that experience. Sufficient cycle. Was it difficult to break into the chosen field? What advice would you give to someone starting a career as a marine biologist after graduation that you wish someone had told you? Okay, it's not a question I don't like. I mean, I understand the reality of working in any job, right? Like there are limited opportunities and they're highly competitive. Number one, ask yourself, are you putting yourself out there? Are you looking for the opportunity? Are you applying for all the opportunities that you are eligible for? That is important. If you're seeing opportunities and you're going, well, I think I could get this, but it takes too much time to apply, or I don't know if I'm going to get it, and then you miss the deadline, then that's something you have to overcome yourself, right? So, and I'm not saying that's specific to you. I'm just saying that that's one of the things that prevents people because they're not actually applying for opportunities to start. You have to put yourself in the mix to see whether you're competitive enough. That's a key thing, right? And you're going to have a lot of failures. I can tell you, my goodness, I have applied. I still apply for grants, right, to run the work that we do here at Oceanswell to support the organization. And I still have many grants that I don't get, right? But I keep trying because I know that every time I apply, I'm getting better at applying. I'm learning things. Plus, I'm giving myself more of an opportunity, right? So that's a first piece of fact. And that's if someone I mean, my situation was a little different because, like I said, there wasn't any established programs. There was nowhere I could volunteer. There was nowhere I could work. I actually had to dig potatoes out of potato fields in Scotland, where I was doing my degree, and like rotting potatoes out of potato fields to make some money to go live in a tent in New Zealand to get volunteer experience, right? So that's what I had to do to get that, because coming home, I would never have got that experience, right? Because it didn't exist. There are now a lot of experiences in Sri Lanka. It's not that people are not willing to give them. We're opening them up to anyone who's willing to be competitive and apply, right? So that's a key thing. I'm not saying it was easy. I will tell you, it was a mad struggle because I came into the field when it didn't exist. People questioned me. People thought I was crazy. People thought didn't know what I was doing by saying I wanted to be a marine biologist, right? I had to build a field. I had people constantly telling me that it was a man's job and I shouldn't be in the field, right? So I've had to face, and I still do, a lot of different challenges, right? Beyond just trying to build a field. But eventually, I just persisted. I kept going. And that was the key thing, right? Like, I can tell you that it sounds ridiculous. I'm sure everybody's like, just keep going. And you're like, well, I've been trying for so long. I mean, unfortunately, that is the secret ingredient, is being persistent and keep working and just giving yourself the best chances possible. What I wish someone had told me, well, I don't know. I don't know if there's. I mean, I am very happy with how things have turned out for myself, right? So, one of the key things is that I am. I mean, my parents said, "Do what you love, and you'll do it well." And I think that's the only thing that really mattered to me, was that I found something that I was good at and that I wanted to do. I'm not saying I was good at it. Actually, I just wanted to do it so badly that I was willing to do everything in my power to get myself into a position to do it, right? So, but you're going to have to work hard and apply. That's what I'm going to say. There's loads of skills that are beneficial, everything from GIS to knowing how to use R for software. But having a keen eye for detail, that's one of the fundamental things. Like, a lot of the opportunities and internships that we advertise here at Oceanswell require people to have a keen eye for detail, because we're looking for different features on species that can tell them apart. We're looking for people who can look at fish and identify the different species that we're seeing in our video recordings. So practice focusing and having a keen eye for detail, and again, apply. Considering Oceanswell Scientific approach, how do you suggest we structure our educational outreach efforts to effectively raise awareness about ocean conservation in a way that complements your organization's objectives? That's a really big question, right? And probably not something I can just answer right now, because it really depends on what you're working on. What are your goals? What is your project, right? Without knowing any of that, it's really, really difficult. And this is a very specific question. But really, what I will say about education outreach is make sure it's steeped in science. I see a lot of outreach material going out here, particularly about the marine environment, which is based on assumptions. And that's actually very dangerous, because that can mislead the public. And we have to all take it upon ourselves to be responsible for the material that's going out into the world. And so verifying what you're putting out there with good sources, either reading scientific publications or going to websites that are reliable, is incredibly important, and just learning to be responsible about what we're putting out in the world. Apologies for joining late. I hope I didn't miss question being asked, but I sent the question regarding employment. What would be the first few steps following a qualification? Again, I didn't get to that question, but I have it on my sheet. So thank you for coming in. What are the first few steps, right? So you have a qualification. Well, multiple things, right? Like it depends on like what you want to do. If you want to do research, if you don't have any experience doing research, and research is of interest to you, then you want to look at opportunities to do research. So that goes back to this is being recorded, so it'll go up on my YouTube channel, and you can all watch this for the questions that have already been answered. So I'm not like repeating myself, but certainly there are a lot of opportunities. Try to get yourself into positions where you can get more field experience, where you can broaden your knowledge, take online courses. That's a really great thing. There's some really great online courses. Upskill yourself, right? Like if you have skills like GIS or R Studio, like for data analysis, or if you're incredible at statistics, those are amazing skills that people will look for, right? So give yourself the opportunity to shine above the other people who are competing for similar positions by working to upskill yourself as well. And apply for jobs that come up, because if you don't apply, you don't really know where you stand in the mix. And if you get a rejection, it's not a bad thing, right? Life is all about like pulling your socks up and moving forward. So I always say failure is the best teacher. So every time I've failed at something, it's been like a lesson learned, and that's helped me to actually reformat the way I'm thinking or how I'm approaching something and moving forward. Okay, keep the questions coming. I'm going to look up my sheet to see what else we have. I have a question from an 8-year-old. I'm 8 years old, but I want to be a marine biologist. I don't know where to start. So learn about the oceans, right? And this actually is a good question for any age group, right? Oftentimes we're like, but what can I do, right? And we can all do stuff. Yes, we can talk about not using single-use plastics, not being conscious about lights and electricity and keeping that on and stuff. But then we also all have very individual skills, right? Like maybe there are things you're really good at, like that, other people aren't. Like maybe you're really great at taking science and converting into very catchy little stories that can drive people to move and make change. Or maybe you're really good at animation, or maybe you're great at singing and songwriting, and maybe you can write about the oceans and create a video, right? Like I don't like telling people specifically what they should do, but if you know something about the ocean, if you make the effort to learn about the ocean, about the challenges that the ocean faces, about the beauty of the ocean, then use that information, put that together with the skills that you have within you, because everybody has a superpower, if not one, many. Use those superpowers to then get the message out. One of the greatest problems for the ocean is most people don't even know much about the ocean. Most people in this world don't know that every second breath you take is generated by plants in the ocean. And so how do we get that knowledge out there? How can we get people to care if they don't know the basic knowledge about how the ocean is supporting their own lives, right? So think about what is your incredible skill and your superpower, and what do you know about the oceans and the challenges it faces and the beauty of it, and how do you bring those together to do something that can actually make beautiful change for our planet, right? What are the other questions? Any other questions or thoughts? Pop them in. Okay. While I'm waiting, I'll look at some of the other questions that I've got. As a female marine biologist, what are the barriers that you face, and how do you overcome those? Well, I mean, as a female in this world, there's always these inherent barriers that we face, and I think that's crazy, and it sucks. Number one thing in terms of the marine biology field is that a lot of people told me that it was a man's job, but I basically said, look, it's not a particular gender that can care for something. And basically marine biology and marine conservation particularly is about caring for our oceans and for the species that live within it, right? Inherently, right? I use my science to care and care better and make better decisions, but it really is about caring, right? And so for me, if you don't see your gender as a problem, then it shouldn't be anyone else's problem, right? So even now I get trust me, I've had people take photographs of me wearing my shorts and skinny, which I wear all the time when I'm going for a run on the roads of Colombo or if I'm in the field. And I've had people basically criticize me on what I'm wearing. Now, if a man was wearing a skinny and short, nobody would say anything. But if he was wearing skinny and shorts and in the beach, they'd be like, wow, look what he's doing, right? But because I'm a woman, I come under fire, right? I've learned not to let that bother me, because I know that the impact I'm having on the world is much greater than anything that anyone can question. And I'm here to make change. My life, I don't have time to waste listening to people telling me their opinions about me and my life and my gender. I really don't have time, because I have a lot on my plate. And in the end, when I die, I want to just know that I've made impact, whether I'm tall, short, fat, thin, black, white, female, male, whatever I am, whatever my orientation, whatever, it does not matter. Because in the end, what drives me is the impact and change that I know I can make, whatever other people see on the outside. Hey, got a new Q&A. I know Oceanswell has previously offered internship, job, research opportunities. Would you ever open up these opportunities internationally? I'm from the UK, and the ones I've seen have requested Sri Lankan nationality. Most of our opportunities are actually locally based, and I'll just so you understand better why. There's a lot of opportunities for people in other countries in their own backyards. Because Sri Lanka is such a new field, we have historically not had opportunities for local people to partake in marine sciences. As I said, when I started, no one was really doing marine science. And now there's like all these young people who want to, and I need to make sure I'm creating space and opportunity for them to be upskilled, to be able to contribute to this country. I'm not going to be here forever, and I'm fully aware of that. And I think there are young people who are doing amazingly, who can do a much better job than me. So I'm trying to open doors so that all these people have the opportunity to grow and become the amazing scientists that I know that they can be. A lot of our work also involves local languages, which is very important, because we do try to translate our work into local languages. We work a lot with communities, and so that's also another key reason why we focus mainly on Sri Lankans in terms of our internship. I'm sure you'll understand that for people who are not native English language speakers, for example, the opportunities are much less. For people in places like Sri Lanka, where there's little opportunity to build the foundation in the field, the opportunities are less. So my job is really trying to make sure that there's lots of opportunities so we can build that next generation of people who will make the difference. Right now, I don't have any opportunities for non-Sri Lankans. I can't say that I never will. Okay, so that's one thing I can say. But let's see. Is it compulsory to be a certified diver? No, it's not compulsory to be a certified diver to work in marine science. Like my team is basically Udayanga, who's working on cetacean acoustics. He's not diving anywhere. He's basically downloading marine mammal vocalizations and analyzing on his computer. Lasuni, she works in social sciences, so she's working with fishermen in the field. She goes into fishing harbors and has conversations. So no, scuba diving is not a major requirement to be a marine scientist. I didn't even get scuba dive. I didn't become scuba dive certified until after my degree. So I did it, once I'd saved up enough money and I was in a position to do it. I don't use diving for my work, because all our work is boat-based. We do not get in the water with the whales. That is a complete no-no. It's illegal, but also it's disruptive. So we work off boats. So I don't use, my scuba diving is purely recreational. And I do that as just a way for me to interact with the ocean in a way that's not just work related. It's okay, someone who's got an IT job. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. We have not very long left. So if you have questions, get them in. We will be stopping at 6 p.m. Okay. Sorry for typing my questions here. I'm currently having an IT job, but I'm super curious about whales and sharks, and I like to volunteer at Oceanswell during my free hours, even to analyze data or stare at video footages to spot special features of whales or sharks, like how long sharks take time to cure their huge wounds. So is there any possibility of this? Super question. We just actually were looking for someone who could do something very similar, and that was the internship we just offered. So those are definitely skills that we are regularly looking for in our work. Quite often we do advertise very specifically saying we're looking at for our photo ID catalog, where we're looking at whales and like trying to look at the differences between two whales to see if it's the same whale or a different whale, right? So I understand from what you're explaining, that's the kind of work you're interested in doing. If you have particular skills, definitely that, I mean, that data, we have to have people working in office though, because that's proprietary data that sits in the office. So look out, there might be opportunities like that coming up that could be possible. It is possible for you to use your IT skills in this field as well. So good question. I have a problem typing question Q&A. One, I have BSc degree in fisheries and marine science to become a marine biologist. What kind of master's degrees, PhDs support for that? So from what I understand, you want to know what kind of masters and PhDs you can do with the degree you have. I cannot answer that for you because it really depends on your interest. PhDs come in various shapes and forms. Masters come in various shapes and forms. I did a degree in marine biology. I did a master's in what we call integrative biosciences, which was looking at 6 different areas of biology, which was behavioral biology, molecular biology, genetics, experimental biology. So I did a master's that was very different to marine sciences, but that was a master's that had a big research component. And that was why I chose that master's. So I'm telling you this only because it's very, very personal. It depends on what you want to do, what interests you. Even in marine sciences, since you have a degree in marine science, you'll know that marine science is such a broad field. There's so much different opportunity, right? And so you need to sort of get a sense of what is it that interests you. And I will say my other piece of advice would be don't rush into getting qualifications. Like don't rush into doing a PhD because it gives you the title of doctor, right? Because a PhD is like it's a years of your life where you're sitting and dedicating to this one tiny subject, right? And it can be very lonely, right? So you have to make sure you're working on something that you're passionate about and interested in. Don't do things just because it's like I'm now, you know, in my early 20s, I finished my undergraduate, the next thing I need to do is a PhD, right? Don't think like that. You need to make sure that you know what you want to work on. I have lots of colleagues who went straight into PhDs who didn't understand what the PhD was fully about, and they started working on it, and then they didn't even complete. I have other colleagues who completed and hated the work, and so totally switched fields altogether, right? And so I want you not to be in that situation, which is why I'm advising you, don't rush. Having degrees is not the be all and end all. If you can fill the time in between your degrees with building skills, right? Working on stuff, you can even apply. Like some of you are saying, what can I do next? You know what? Look around. There are small grants available across the world. Again, I cannot tell you where these grants are. You need to go on and Google online. But there are small conservation grants. There are small grants to support research. You can apply for one of those grants and build a project, write a proposal, get the grant, and build a project, right? That can then you can execute here, do a project, get some results, right? I know someone, I know, you know, the vicious cycle question, this is related to that, right? Here's another idea. Build a project, do some research. It can be small, right? It can be a small project, but do something that shows your scientific capacity, your ability to be organized, your ability to lead projects. There's a lot of things that employers or you know, other people you look up to will read from the kind of work you've done. So if you can build a little research project and execute it and you know, show that sense of responsibility, but also that passion for doing something for the marine environment, you're going to increase your chances of getting noticed by people who are looking to hire people in the marine field, right? So think about that as an option. 2, if consider about the job demand for marine biologists and demand for marine science field, what kind of countries have high demand? Again, super difficult for me to answer. It's a tricky question, right? Like different, I mean, Sri Lanka, some people don't even think there's a demand, but in my eyes, there's a high demand for marine scientists, right? So it really depends on the countries. You need to do a bit of research on the culture of marine sciences in those different countries. Do they have the field? Is it a new field? Is it a growing field? So that's something that, again, will require a little bit of work from your side. Okay, we have 11 minutes. Pop your questions. I'm really enjoying being able to answer some of this. Okay, what is the impact of genetics in marine biology, and what are the specific fields in genetics that use in marine biology? Well, genetics is really a very key component in all fields of biology, as you know, right? Certainly, I will say that you can use genetics to identify species in an area. We use genetics to basically identify what blue whales were feeding on by extracting the DNA of prey from the poop of the blue whales and then looking at what they were feeding on, right? So genetics is a very versatile field. If you have that skill, there's certainly quite a lot of options. But again, it's very difficult for me to go into details because I can give you that one example, but you can work in like diseases, you can work in understanding prey predator dynamics, you can work on species identification and taxonomy. There's loads of scope if you have genetic skills. So again, something to explore. One way to explore more, like all of you are asking me these questions, but like one suggestion I can make for how do you explore areas that interest you more is to read scientific articles. Please read scientific articles. I know you'll read them and you'll be like, oh my God, this is so confusing. This is so complicated. The methods section is so heavy. I don't understand it. Well, there are sections of a paper that you can read. The abstract, which is a summary of all the work that's been done in that paper. Read those. The introduction, it will give you the background to why that work is so important. The discussion, even if those are the only 3 sections you read, you get a lot of opportunity, right? To understand and learn more about the field. So make that commitment to yourself. Don't just rely on what you learned in university. What you learn in university is the basics of a field, right? The basics of marine science, the basics of fisheries. But the field is evolving constantly. You cannot stay up to speed. You cannot be a cutting edge scientist unless you know what is the latest research that's happening across the world, right? So make the effort to read the papers in the field that's of interest to you. How do you find some of the papers? One of the suggestions I can make is sign up to Google Scholar, right? Put notifications so that, or Google, that it tells you when a new paper has come up in that area that you're interested in. The other thing is different fields have mailing lists, right? You can subscribe to a mailing list. If you subscribe to the mailing list, it provides you with you can subscribe to the mailing list, and when people publish new papers in that community, they send it onto that mailing list. You have access, first row access to them, right? So look around for mailing lists. For example, just as an example, the marine mammal mailing list is called MARMAM. If you Google MARMAM mailing list, you can find it, you can subscribe, and you'll just get an email either every day, or you can choose to get it once a week or once a month. But it's really handy, and that's one way to keep on top of the latest science that's happening in your field. Okay, chat. From what I hear, it seems like a very busy field. What about the work-life balance in this field? I mean, it's a personal choice, right? Like I'll tell you my personal thing is that I think I have a great work-life balance, right? I do sport every single day, right? Every morning I do some kind of sport. Either I run, swim, cycle, and if it's an off day, I'll go for a walk, right? I need my outdoor time. That is incredibly important for me to be functional. I encourage people to have work-life balance. That can be different to everyone, right? So it's not specific. Some people might consider work-life balance as in they need to have their outdoor time and be able to work. Some people might be like, I need to have family time and work. It's a personal choice, and there's no criticism what you choose. But it's up to you to create that work-life balance, right? And I've always been a person that has had boundaries. So you set your boundaries. My boundaries are my mornings are for my sport. I'm a very early riser. I'm usually up at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm usually out running by like 5:30 in the morning, right? Before anyone else is awake. I've done my sport. I get to work. I work till like 5, 6. And then once I close my computer, I don't actually do any work after that, right? So I'm not sitting at my computer all day, all night. This may not be what you expect to hear, right? But this is the life that I've carved for myself over time, because I want to be able to sustainably do this work until the day I die. I don't want to burn out. I don't want to get tired of it. I don't want to get fed up of it. It's important to me that I am able to do this work, and I put into place the things that give me the balance I need to be able to do the work in the long term. I don't work on weekends, right? So that's not to say I'm not always thinking about certain aspects of my work, right? Obviously, like I'm incredibly passionate about what I do, right? I love the work I do. I'm not switching my brain off. But for me, I need to have time with my family in the evening or my friends. I need to have time outdoors. I need to have time to do sports. I need to have time to explore. That is important to me. I will create the time for that, right? So yes, work-life balance is important. My team, they're not allowed to work after 5 o'clock, and they're not allowed to work on the weekends. So if they send me emails or text messages, which sometimes they mistakenly do after hours or on the weekend, unless it's an emergency or an emergency or an urgent situation, I will respond and say, this can wait till Monday, right? Now, I know not all bosses are going to do that. So this is my work culture that I create for myself and for my team, because I want them to do this work in the long term. I want them to stay passionate and to love to drive change for our oceans when they're in their 80s, in their 90s, or whatever it is, right? I don't want to burn them out now, because then we're losing important people from this conservation endeavor. Okay. Any upcoming projects that young students can participate in? I don't know off the top of my head. We haven't really planned yet. So I cannot really answer that question right this second, unfortunately. You'll have to keep watching our social media and check the website for any updates on that. Okay, we have 4 minutes. I think this talk is going to shut down in 4 minutes, so I'm not going to take any more questions. I'm going to respond to the last question here today. It says greatest career highlight so far. That's a very big question, because for me, like, there's so many things that have been so incredible. I would say obviously my most important one was my great discovery that these blue whales don't migrate out of Sri Lankan waters, and that was 20 years ago. So that was a long time ago, but that was, like, I would say the greatest thing, because that's what took me on this trajectory. And despite everyone telling me I couldn't do it, it gave me the opportunity to prove myself through a lot of hard work, I will tell you. And that's a story that's available on, like, my talks and stuff, and I would encourage you to listen. But some of my other great highlights, I will drop a couple more, is being able to fully fund graduate students, Sri Lankan graduate students at a local university, with a world-class opportunity to engage in marine science and to build themselves up. That's been a lifelong dream for me, and it makes me so happy, right? And we've got great students working really hard. They are working hard because they know that if they work hard and succeed, then the next lot of students will get an opportunity much the same. And so we work together as a team. We all understand the more we do for others, and the more we support each other, the more opportunities we're able to create for other people. So that's a very big thing for all of us here at Oceanswell. All right. I can go on with great career highlights, because I've had so many that I'm a big optimist, right? I'm a person who sees a lot of joy in the world, and so that's really helpful. And I tend to see, like, where I am today is there's been a lot of great milestones. There's been a lot of disappointment, a lot of failures, but I tend not to focus on that. I tend to see how to when I get in those positions, I look at how I get out of that position, and then I look at how do I move forward. And I think that's something that I've worked on also very hard to be able to do. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We have 2 minutes left, and I don't think that's enough time to really well answer a question. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your time, and for you for being here. I hope I've been able to give you some insight into what it takes, how you can do it, things to think about. Look out for maybe another one of these sessions in a few months' time. That if you're interested, there may be other questions. So look out for those opportunities. If you have friends interested, make sure that you share the opportunities that we have through Oceanswell, or opportunities like this, because they sometimes may miss out. And the other great thing you can do is, if you see a job opportunity and you think you're applicable and you can apply, but you also see a friend who's eligible, share the opportunities, right? Like, we need to share more if we want to create a bigger team. And the more we share, the more opportunity comes back to us as well. All right. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to be able to talk to you. And I hope you have lots to think about and to process. And this video will be up on one of the YouTube channels very soon, probably my own YouTube channel very soon. And then you can share it with friends and family who might have interest in similar questions. All right. Thank you very much. No problem. And have a great day. Bye-bye.